Hi everybody and welcome to Reed's Reads Spider-Man Crawl Space Edition. Check us out at the SpiderManCrawlspace.com. Also, happy anniversary to the Crawl Space podcast, guys. It's been an amazing 15 years. Congrats on all that. And I look forward to what we got coming up in the future here. So thanks again. Also, thank you for also having me be a part of the podcast. That's my little shameless promotion right there. But let's get into this week's reviews of Spider-Man. I had my digital copies this week here just due to the weather and some of the commitments. School year's starting soon, folks. I have to kind of do certain commitments to things. So let's get on to, of course, Amazing Spider-Man 71, aka 872, and of course, the Symbiote Spider-Man Crossroads here. Part 2 of Sinister War and the first issue of Peter David and Greg Land's Symbiote Spider-Man series. So let's get into 872, issue 71. See what that messes up? Okay, you know, it's like Marvel, come on. You only can make so much money out of this. Okay, sorry. All right, anyhow, let's get to the pros. First of all, this really does kind of pick up a lot of things, because the one thing is, it doesn't really give us the thing of what's going on with Spider-Man. We know he's in the middle of battling the Sinister Six, the Syndicate, the Sinister Forces, the Casino Royale group, and that's all taking place right now in issue 2 of Sinister War, which will not be out for the next week or so. But this really is a nice little area to really find out what's going on in the head of Mysterio, actually find out what his motivation's been here. And I really love the characterization here. This really gets not only into Quentin Beck and everything about what he's done for being Mysterio, from his suicide in Daredevil 7 to his bring back in Peter David and Todd Nack's Spider-Man during Civil War, to where he's been showing up, and the fact that he was actually Mary Jane's psychiatrist after, of course, everything happened with Harry dying. So it's really interesting how this is all putting the character. And one thing I can definitely tell is Nick Spencer, like me, is a huge fan of Mysterio. He really gets into the master disguise, talking about how he went from a simple supervillain who was on top of the world and enjoying his little areas. Even has a little couple of winks to actually the Symbiote Spider-Man series he was part of himself there in the first one of Peter David's series. But it's really a nice little thing on Quentin Beck and basically how he's been doing everything, and how Harry actually took him out of hell, how he got back and everything, how he's given his life back, and the fact that how he's basically been serving to protect Mary Jane from everything. And it's really interesting, of course, when he leaves her there for Kindred to, of course, leave over and join the rest of the Sinister War. I also like the fact we're actually seeing some other elements that everything from Nick Spencer's runs and issues actually has been all making sense and connecting. The fact we find out what about Mandel Strom's death, him leaving the key to the certain room over into back in Europe for Norman Osborn. We finally find out what happened to him and why he was on the monitors in the mausoleum. So all these plots are really coming together. I mean, there's only so much Spider-Man really at the beginning of this issue, which is him just being thrashed by all the various Rogues Gallery members there during the Sinister War. And I think that's really well done. But that also kind of leads me to the cons. One of my biggest cons here right now is not the artwork, not the flashbacks, but actually the whole little thing between Carly Cooper and Harry Lehman, aka the other Harry Osborn. When it can reveal his whole, there is no escape, and the truth is the cell door is open, you know, and basically Carly wants to do it, and basically it's basically the classic, you know, oh, we're not really confined to this room, it's if we leave the room everything's going to be really bad. And the fact that we find out the whole little thing with the ambulance and some of the parts of the mausoleum is kind of interesting, but it kind of feels like it's just a weird little part too, because, you know, usually when you have something saying, well, there's no escape, but yet he's sitting there in a jail cell that's open, and it's basically whatever lies behind the door, you're just going to end up back in the jail cell. So I think that's not as cryptic, and it kind of pops up a thing why Carly isn't just saying, well, Harry, hello, what's really going on here? I don't get this. What is out there? I can't think. Oh, well, let's just go out the door, Carly, and you'll find out. Plot point, everybody. Also, the artwork seems to be a little off. Sometimes it looks really good, like the parts between the parts with Norman Osborn about Mendel Strom's Last Will and Testament, as well as the starts between Mysterio and Mary Jane are really well. But then when you see some of the flashbacks with the battle that's going on with the Sinister Forces, it's kind of a little all over the place. Also, Kindred looks a little off on a couple of things too, so it kind of brings it down here. But otherwise, to be the in-between chapter, what's going on, why the Sinister War miniseries is happening, is actually pretty well done. Believe it or not, I'm actually going to give this issue an A-. Biggest reason reasons, because I love the character work that's actually done between Mary Joy and Mysterio, as well as some of the other stuff that's happening in the background. Norman Osborn and Mandel Strom's little point here in the key to the mansion that's been given to him and everything. I really do like those pieces of the part, and it definitely gets you more interested in wanting to read issue 2 of Sinister War to find out what's going on with Spider-Man and what actually led to, you know, him being in front of Kindred back in issue 70. So it's a lot of interesting. It's still build up, but it's nice seeing all these plot points brought together, and it's really strong character work, especially on Mysterio the most here. So good job on that for an A-. Now let's head on over to the most recent issue of the Symbiote Spider-Man by Peter David and Greg Land with Crossroads, which is about taking place just before Peter David started his Hulk run back in the year. So this is really cool. Let's get into the pros. First of all, this is really nice. It really kind of sets up what the story is right away with, of course, seeing Moondrake, who was actually, as they say, a lovable loser back from the Symbiote Spider-Man days of the 80s. It's kind of cool because he was kind of a poor man's, you know, Mordru, the Baron Mordru, and it's kind of interesting to see him in the bar getting recruited and him talking and everything, because the truth is he has a lot of interesting set powers, and during the battle between Spider-Man and of course Black Cat is also pretty interesting take too, because he's allowed to of course show off his mind control powers, some of his forces, but it's also comical because as much as he tries to be a powerful crazy foe, Black Cat and Spider-Man pretty much just mock how much of an idiot he is, and yes, he's got some crazy tricks to his sleeve, but he's not as much of a threat as he thinks he is, and it's really nice bringing back this kind of long forgotten Spider-Man villain to actually be brought into the story. I also love the little earlier teaser where we actually have the Chameleon impersonating the president. Of course, they had to show him off key because they couldn't really show. Since this is placing back during the 80s, we don't know really exactly what is the timeline right here for the Symbiote Spider-Man. Was that, you know, was that President Reagan? Was that President Bush? Or maybe it was early 90s and it's President Reagan. But they like how they kept it. It also borrows a subplot from the original Barack Obama issue where by Todd Nack, from where they had the Chameleon trying to impersonate Obama to get into area. So it's a nice little thing. Plus, it also has the Chameleon's classic 80s and late 70s look, which we might really remember from, of course, 10 Little Superheroes from the old classic Amazing Spider-Man and his friends and everything. So it's a really nice here. I also like how the fact that they actually got it. The Black Cat used her background, the fact that she has everything from the bar and no name to find out about the Chameleon's plot to get this all set up and everything. So it's a really nice touch, especially talking in this day and age. I really liked it as a really cool little fun little plot. But there's also some other things, and that kind of goes into the cons here. The cons is it feels like a lot of stuff is a little too convenient. I mean, Black Cat found out about the Chameleon's plot. You think somebody who's, you know, as we found out in the current issues, which I know Peter David's definitely probably been reading about how the Chameleon had these sleeper agents as well as other people like him, for politicians to your average guy at the coffee shop. I think it's kind of weird that the Black Cat finds out about all these things going on. She finds out about, you know, the Chameleon's impersonating Moondrake going to steal the Narn Stone at the museum and so forth. I mean, it's really nice, but there's also things where we're starting to see that friction that was happening. Because remember, when Roger Stern was on Amazing Spider-Man, he was really setting up Felicia and Peter to get together before, of course, Peter and Mary Jane got together. And the Symbiote Spider-Man series have actually focused mostly on that relationship between Peter and Felicia, which has been really nice. But you're starting to see where parts of their relationship had started to break down back then, so it's a nice part of continuity. But I think it's also the point too where it kind of makes things a little too convenient, and the fact that, of course, if the Black Cat really was doing it, wasn't Peter finding out about more supervillain stuff from his previous series? So it's kind of a little bit too convenient. Also, I think when Moondrake gets taken out in the long run was also convenient, and then the fact that, of course, Carnilla, the Queen of Norn, which actually I was really happy to see, just shows up and like, oh, he was an idiot because he doesn't know he can't use the magic because you have to be somebody like me because I can't get it, but once I have the stone, I can go ahead and use the powers because I am awesome. I am Carnilla, and I want Balder to be my secret husband over in the Thor series right now. But I do like the fact that she gets tricked by Peter when he tries to banish the two of them to the Crossroads, which is the in-between dimensions that the Hulk, of course, got stuck into just before Peter David started his run. And, of course, it gets set up. So it's kind of nice. I think the issue really sets up what the storyline is between the Narn Stone, the Narn Stones, and, of course, how Peter gets over there, as well as how the Hulk got himself out of that dimension to begin Peter David's run on Hulk, which wasn't much longer after that. So, in a way, it's a kind of a continuity cleanup, and I still enjoy the work by Greg Land and Peter David on this series. In fact, bringing back people like Moondrake and Carnilla and everything was actually a lot of fun, especially since Peter David has a lot of love for Thor mythology. But at the same time, is it has a couple of issues between the convenience of how the Black Cat was able to get all this information on the various supervillains from the Chameleon to Moondrake, and there's not enough of the Daily Bugle, because here we have Jonah and Robbie in it and Peter's pictures, but at the same time is it's not really anything to really gloss over or do anything. So it kind of feels like a waste of the supporting cast members. Is just a footprint before we get to the cliffhanger with Peter being face to face with the Hulk in the Crossroads dimension. But I'll give it an A-. I actually really did enjoy it as a series. I've really enjoyed the Symbiote Spider-Man series, and this one really is no different, but I think it's a lot more fun here. As now that we've had the several issues established and everything, I think really now Peter David and Greg Land really get to run around with some fun between both continuity as well as the characters and everything and the various villains and superheroes during the 80s and early 90s run. So nicely done there, guys. A-minuses across the board. Well done. And on that note, guys, I think I'm going to wrap it up for this week. So if you would like to hear more on everything, please check us out the Spider-Man Crawl Space.com for all of us amazing friends, as well as everything from Discord to the podcast and more. And on that note, everybody, I will see everybody later on the Crawl Space.